up in at 10:30, you said?
We have time.
Yeah, so we will for sure get you where you need to be by then. So thank you all for taking the time to be with us all today. The three of us are here to answer any of your questions. At the end, I am going to comment briefly on one issue, but let's go one school at a time. We have two schools with us. We have Lukanzik and Jane Addams, so let's just go one question per school at a time. And let's start with Jane Addams.
Are you on, Tuesday?
Yeah. Do you want us to ask questions, or you're?
Ask one question per school, so we'll start with Jane Addams.
People who aren't speaking need to mute.
Thank you. And if it's not your turn, could you mute your computer so that we're not having feedback?
If you hover your mouse towards the top of the screen, it'll pop up a control panel. One of them will be a microphone with a line through it. Just click that if you're not the one actively speaking, so we don't get the feedback.
All right, great. So Jane Addams, could you please ask one question?
Okay, I'm just reading.
Could you, apparently in where you are sitting, you have two computers right next to each other. Could you separate those two computers? I don't know how far apart.
Or mute
one of them, please.
Okay. Are you good? All right. Okay, our first question is, how do you create sessions for makeup?
Yeah. So Pearson has just released new documentation on how to do makeup testing. What we're going to do is I'm going to print that out, put it into a PDF, make any changes that are needed, and send that out to every school. But it will be the primary role of the PARRC tech specialist to do this. It will be part of their training next week. There are different scenarios of how to do it. Basically, you have two choices. You can either keep the child in the original test session. So when we get to the makeup time, we'll just reopen that exact test session and start the test, or resume the test for that one child. That would work fine if we have a limited number of makeups. If we have a large number of makeups, it might make more sense to move the child from that original session into a new session that has all the students that will be doing a makeup test together. And that is part of the training for next week, and those people will be making those. One comment that came up that I'm going to look into and get back on this issue is, will they be able to do the makeup testing for the small group test administrators? So give me a little time to figure that one out, but hopefully the answer is yes. You have a follow-up question on that issue, Jane Addams?
So I'm being provided the training along with the tech people that are...
I'm going to send you the documentation, but it is going to be the role of the PARRC tech specialist to recreate or to move or to basically handle makeup sessions. The building test coordinator's function is to ensure that all children are assessed, so the communication between that person and the PARRC tech specialist to ensure it's done, but actually recreating that or moving would be their function. But I'll give you the directions as well, just so you have it.
So they're doing for the entire building?
Correct.
Okay, so then time-wise on how much they're working, because they're testing all day, so how long of hours are they working with us? Because I won't be able to connect with them to give them the list of the students that need to be retested, so they create the sessions of when the kids need to be scheduled to be retested.
All right, so the arrival time is approximately an hour and a half before the first test session at the building. And when they come in, they'll have morning duties, which include retrieving the equipment, headphones and mice, and setting them up in small test locations, logging in, opening up to the sign-in screen on the computer for small group testing, and then also in their own main labs doing the same as well. They will have the student test tickets in the secure room, which they'll retrieve and deliver to locations with the equipment. That's how they'll know how many computers are set up. At the end of the day, there's where we might come into problems with timing. They have, I believe we agreed on an 8-hour workday, which puts it about 30 minutes after testing is over, they're still in the building. And their end-of-day duties would include retrieving that equipment and putting it away. But as we finalize what their day will look like, I'll probably be doing that tonight, I will know if we need assistance at the building level to make sure that's done in time. because we need to make sure that all these Chromebooks are stored and charged for the next day. Your question about when can you meet with them? I could try to build that into the morning routine. That would be later in the morning, but before test starts. Maybe a 15-minute check-in with you.
If I could jump in, there will be multiple tech proctors in every location, so it may be a case of divide and conquer. One or two of them responsible for equipment setup, and the other tech proctor would be responsible for some of the administrative tasks and touching base with you.
No, it's an excellent question, and I appreciate it. I have not finished putting together next week's training material, and those are questions that we kind of get to as we do it, but it's great to have that one in mind. I think Ashley's point is well taken, that there are multiple people there, so divide and conquer will probably be the way we handle it.
Do you have their specific hours for middle school?
I have it. I don't have it in my mind right now, but I can get that to you today.
Okay, that would be helpful. I'm just going to be honest, for scheduling purposes, that I'm concerned about that. So I would like that training along with the person, our LMC director.
We're providing the documents to you, and I can answer any questions on it, and how to do that. And I will be sending those out sometime tomorrow. I don't know exactly when tomorrow.
Okay, I thought you just referenced a training for next week, but you were talking about the proctors.
I'm talking about the documents I'll send out. It's part of the training next week. That document will be part of the training.
Okay. All right, so that will address creating makeup session, adding students, deleting students.
Yeah, so the PARRC proctor specialist would be the one primarily in charge of moving kids between sessions. If it's other issues where they're leaving your building for another building in the district or even another school district, you would send the names of those children to myself and to help desk / Nicole Haley.
So like today I had a new student, so that name needs to get sent to you and Nikki today?
Yes.
Okay. What about adding, like I just had
I'm going to pause you guys because we've gone very far with Jade Adams. Let's let Lucanza ask a few questions and we'll go back and forth.
I think they want to know the same answers that I want to know. I'm just kidding.
Lucanza, please ask a question.
Yes, actually, can we continue on that same, like if we get new kids, send the names to you, Michael?
And to Nikki Haley / help desk. Yes.
If they're new students with an IEP, you're going to send the same information because we still need to make sure it's updated in FileMaker, but the student information report is going to need to be entered by hand. So when you submit the help desk to add them to the test session, you should also include what accommodations and supports the student would need. If the student has an IEP, if you could copy myself on that email to help desk and Mike Lacasio, that will help us in supporting you. If you have a student who's moving, maybe who's within the district but is moving between buildings, we have asked the sending school to initiate the email of the change of the student process as well as the IEP accommodations.
Years.
I don't know that that's...
Another one, Adam's already asked quite a few. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, Erica, that process is occurring. We've got 3 new students starting on Tuesday for the CARES program.
Yes, we just got off the Google Hangout with Humphrey, AVM, and Brooks, and they're the ones who initiated that question, so we have let them know this process as well.
Okay, yeah,
we've asked them to copy you or the receiving buildings administration as well so that you're aware that that process has started. So if AVM is sending a student to you this week, they're going to do a help desk request detailing the students moving from AVM to Lucanza. In addition to Nicole, Mike, and myself being copied, both you and Kathy Batista should be copied on the email as well.
Okay, so we have to wait for that process to be done in order to go back in and add them to a tag?
So the tagging would be for our own local reports that are generated and given to classroom teachers and to the tech proctors, so they know who's coming to them or where kids are going. But in the actual Pearson system and in the ISB side, there are different ways of doing things. Some things need to be manually done, and I'll be doing that in the Pearson system. Others need to be put into a student file, which is then uploaded to ISB and then sent over to Pearson. And those are things. That would be things that Nicole Haley's team would be doing.
Okay, so there won't be. How do we communicate to her then what small group that we already have established that they need to be added to?
Right, so that would be the ones that I would be doing. So yeah, so if it's a situation where a child in your building has a new schedule or a new IEP and you're putting them into a new group, you would send me the name of the session they used to be in, or the group they used to be with, their student ID number and name, and the new test session you want them to be in, and them now. Then going forward, that would be something that could be done at your site through the tech specialist, but we would need to be aware of that as well. So you're still sending it off, just so we have a record of it.
Okay.
We'll take the time to document the steps that everybody needs
Correct.
to follow and ensure everyone has that information this week.
The statement earlier about how I'm sending out a PDF on how to do makeup sessions, there's actually 2 PDFs that they've just put together. One is makeup sessions, and the other deals with issues like this. And each is about 6 pages long. I'll be sending all those to each school tomorrow, and that'll be part of the training for the proctors next week. But you will have step-by-step instructions on how to do any of these things if needed. With
Okay.
pictures. They have pictures with them as well. All right, Jane Adams, please ask a question.
When will we get the generic logins for the desktop computers? We were informed that they would have logins.
The tech proctors will be taking care of logging into those systems, so they will have that information with them.
Right, is your concern like a scenario where someone's late to the building and that's not done in time and you want to be able to provide the backup?
Correct.
Well, you'll have multiple tech proctors in your building in order to facilitate that, but as a backup plan, we can ensure that you also have that information. That won't be a problem.
I mean, there's no reason for that to be something.
No, not
Yeah,
at all.
so we can absolutely share that out. Just know that, from my understanding, everything has to take place on a PARRC-ready computer, so
Yeah.
having this doesn't mean you can go to any computer in the school and start PARRC testing, because it wouldn't work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We won't share it with anybody.
So you'll be sharing
Well,
it.
what I'm saying is you can't use it on a computer that isn't set up to take PARRC testing.
Right. That's
Right, we just are using mostly Chromebooks in our small group, but we have to use some laptops in our small group, so we'll need that.
Teresa, could we talk about that offline maybe and how we can support you with that, because we are not wanting to move forward with that. So let's touch base today about if you've identified some more needs that you're having, and we'll figure out how to support you with that. Okay?
Okay.
Lukasz, do you have any other questions?
Do I have? Yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah.
Wait, we're going back and forth now, one per school. Lukasz, do you have a question?
Yes, I'm just wondering in regards to that comment that was just asked about laptops, or we don't have any laptops. Okay, never mind. Another question in regards to headphones.
Yes. Hi, Tricia.
The part that I'm still unclear on is, are we going to receive headphones for our general testing labs?
We were under the impression that you had headphones for your general testing labs. We do have additional headphones, so the communication is going out this week as to how many headphones you will be receiving. If that is insufficient, then we'll work with you to ensure that you have sufficient for the general testing labs. I don't have the specific numbers that you're having in front of me. I can follow up with you on that.
Okay, I know that in the building we currently have less than 30.
Okay.
All right, great question. Jane Adams, do you have another question?
This has this is in relation to special ed. So a paraprofessional can serve as a scriber. We just have to support them through the training, go over the documents that identify what they're responsible for as being a scribe.
That is correct. My understanding, though, is our paraprofessionals have to be in the supervision of a certified teacher.
Yep.
So please place special attention to how is a student going to scribe to a paraprofessional if there's more than one student in there. Because if the teacher is serving as the test proctor and is supervising, you've got multiple students in the session and they're all talking at the same time to the scribe, that could cause some testing security concerns.
Okay. And then I was informed that there was a document that the scriber needed to sign. Can you give me a location of that? I looked through the document or the whole manual and I couldn't find it.
If you look on the links that Michael has sent out, that'll take you to the PARRC page where there's all the hyperlinks for the trainings. There is a hyperlink that details scribe, and it'll take you directly to the directions on how to print those documents. I know that Tracy Miller and I touched base yesterday, and so if she's going to be in your building as well anytime soon, as well as Mary Worster, they can go to the link as well and help you find where those scribe directions are. Just print them. We're encouraging you to review them step by step with the individuals who may be the human scribe, and then just having them sign off on the bottom. And if you can't find them and if you need them a little bit sooner, I'm happy to talk to you later today, and I can send you the link.
No, I found them. I just misunderstood. I thought there was a formal signature page, but you're just asking that they sign off on the directions. Got it.
Okay, all right. Lucas, do you have another question?
Yes, actually, this is another. Are you guys going to? I know we submitted some questions to the Google Doc. Are you guys going to those specifically as well, or it's just kind of a back and forth?
So it's a back and forth. If you want to reiterate that question now, you can. What we're also doing is we're recording each of these sessions, and they'll be transcribed and compiled, and a document will be sent to all schools that lists all of the questions and all of the answers. So perhaps we can't answer a question today. We will research and get the answer to you in that document.
Okay. Erica, a question for you. We have a student with a visual impairment who has iZoom software. We're seeking clarification in terms of, is that something that is going to need to be loaded onto the computer that he's going to be using? Is that an...
It is. It's going to, on the computer that he's going to use to test, that is going to be loaded. My knowledge of WinZoom is it used to be on a thumbprint drive, so I would work with your VI specialist to know if it can just be inserted into any computer through the thumbprint drive or whether or not it's going to need to have a formal installation. In that case, we're going to have to submit a help desk. In terms of IEP documentation, this is going to be under the assistive technology code in FileMaker, and then the staff member would just type in WinZoom software.
Hey, Jane Adams, do you have another question?
Yeah, one final one from us. When students are released to use the washroom in emergency situations, are we pausing their test?
Great question, and there's two parts to this I want to comment on. No, we're not pausing the test, so it is taking away from the 60-minute or 90-minute standard time, mandated time they have to use. So prepping our kids beforehand, if you need to go to the bathroom, let's do it before we test. If they have to go, they have to go, but they're not getting extra time at the end because they went to the bathroom. There is no timing system in the test itself. We are having whoever's administering the test is the person who has to note when it started and how much time there is available, and they're the timekeepers stating there's 20 minutes left and now time is up. But a related note to this is who takes them to the bathroom. We cannot leave any of our children alone with the PARRC technology specialists that we're hiring. So that would mean that if it's in a main lab where the classroom teacher is there and the PARRC technology specialist is there, that classroom teacher cannot escort the child to the bathroom. In those cases, we will need to contact the office for a security guard or office personnel to come and retrieve the child and escort them to the bathroom and escort them back to the lab. But we're not allowed to send the teacher out to leave the technology specialist alone with the students. Lukazik, do you have any other questions? Lukazik, are you there?
The PARRC video.
Yes, we're here. We're looking to see which other one.
Privacy screens. And small group proctors bring their own laptops.
Small group proctors. I'm assuming it is fine for them to bring their own laptops for the administration piece.
Yes. So this came up in the last session, and we had some related topics with that. So there are directions on one of the documents that states that staff cannot bring phones or e-readers or laptops of their own to the lab, and that's referring to the professional standards required of a proctor who is there with the children. And what we mean by that, and what I mean by that, is they're not there for entertainment reasons. So if you have a professional need to have a computer there, and one school's example was, our communication plan is going to be through email. So they needed to have a computer brought with the teacher whose job it will be to reach out through email when help is needed. Then it's fine. If you want your small group test administrator to bring their own computer to open up Pearson Access Nest and deliver the assessment, that is fine. The directions were more about when we're avoiding the possibility of a staff member completing work or viewing Facebook or viewing CNN in the test session through their own device. That's not allowed.
Okay. I also had another staff member that was questioning on page 19 of the manual. It talks about privacy screens.
And just so you know, we absolutely read through every documented question that was submitted, so we could prepare ahead of time what we could. I don't have that list because my computer's being used or was being used, so I'm not going through what each session was. To answer this question, we do not have those privacy screens, and they're actually quite expensive to order. If those who don't know what that is, it's like essentially like a 3-sided cardboard box, which would block out my test session. But we also don't need it. It is something that, by the way, PARRC is designed with multiple forms, and each children answering one question at a time on their screen. The odds of Erica and I having the exact same form and being on the exact same question at the same time are slim to none, according to ISB. So it's not even mandatory to have it.
Okay. Will tech proctors be on district email?
Yes, they will be having a district email, yes.
Jane Adams, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, Mike, I have one. So we told our staff yesterday they are not using their personal laptops during the assessment. So we're going to allow, as a district, we're going to allow them to. Because I feel like we're setting ourselves up for people to be on email, not proctoring the exam. I've been through that multiple times, multiple places.
Yeah, and so again, it's coming down to building need. At that particular school, that we had to say that because that was their communication plan. They had no other way to do it, and they also didn't have an open computer to use in that way. So we said, fine, as long as it's generally understood, that's for professional use and not for any other use. In your building, if you know you have the available resources to say, don't bring your computer because you will not need it, then yes, that's fine. But if you also know that there's no way we won't have enough computers if they don't bring it, then they're going to have to bring it.
Okay, yeah, we were going to need to get some from you, but all right, so they can use their computers. All right.
All right, Lukazik, do you have any other questions?
Yes, in terms of a student with demonstrating disruptive behavior that has to be removed from a testing session, I know that you indicated if they had to go use the restroom that you didn't pause it. What if we're in a real life situation and a student is making choices that they're being disruptive to the testing environment and they have to be removed?
All right, in your communication plan in your building where you were designing it around reaching out for technical help, you probably might want to build in some way to how do I contact the dean or the front office to handle an issue like this. Clearly, if you need immediate action, this child is completely disruptive and inappropriate, take them to the hall. You can leave. I mean, they're standing right there, and there's no park police coming to say, oh, for 3 minutes the kids were unsupervised. There is an adult in the room, but they're not a licensed educator. If you need to go to right in front of that doorway in the hall with this child to remove them from the environment and then call for assistance to get the dean there or some security guard to escort them to the dean, I feel that's appropriate. If we're talking about a situation where this one child is truly disruptive.
But I guess my question is, if we're at the point where the child does have to be removed from the testing environment, what do we do with the test? Like, can we stop it and start it back up in a different location? Can we...
Well, okay, I see your point. So all testing, no matter... All testing is mandatory to that time. I believe there's a form that I have somewhere. Let me get back to you, and I'll add this into the overall document that we put together of how it's handled. I believe at that point there's a special form we have to submit to the state. But let me get back to you today personally, and then for all schools, I'll make sure this is included in the document that we're sharing out.
Okay. And then in terms of the viewpoint file that Nikki had sent out last week, was that just for the purpose of that quick turnaround for verification, or is that file still live and being updated? What's the... Because like when we're thinking in terms of for attendance, is that a document that we can easily access and print off for attendance, or that was just a...
No, it was not a one-time thing. So the intention of that document, I think, was twofold on the day in question. One, it was to be used as a resource to verify information, but it is also where you would go to print out the rosters to give to your classroom teachers. Now, there's two versions of that viewpoint report, and I think she's only sent out directions on one of them. One is, I think, what was sent out, and that's the one that would go to the classroom teacher, and that's kind of the coming and going report. Or I mean the going report, where are my children going for testing? There's a second version, which is kind of the coming report, who's the small test administrator or the main lab administrator of the assessment, and it's a report saying who's coming to me at this time to take the test. On both of those, there is that final section that has the attendance on it. My plan for next week as part of the training is to have those printed out and given to our specialists for their sessions in your building. Then you would be printing those out and giving them to your small group test administrators.
Okay, and so are those viewpoint files talking daily to Pearson for updates?
No, that's why as part of the communication for changes, you are emailing myself to make those changes in Pearson, but also Nikki Haley /help desk to update those reports.
Okay, so would it just make more sense to actually print the roster reports directly off of Pearson rather than the viewpoint system?
Then it doesn't have...
doesn't differentiate which location the student is going in. Doesn't have
or the attendance section built in. I'll think about it, and can you and I talk about it later today, and let me get Nikki's input on what makes the most sense?
Okay.
All right, sounds great. Jane Adams, I know you have a time constraint. Have we answered all of your questions?
I just have a follow-up to LaKansas' question about the viewpoint. So in order to keep those current, we need to continue to tag students.
Correct, or sending it to us, and we're making those changes. But if it's if you're putting them into a small group session and you know that change, you could have your office person update the tagging and then also let me know, so that I'm adding that information into Pearson's. Because that assessment session location, that tagging, for example, that was a one-time deal in our upload. We can never change that through an upload. So I have to go in manually and adjust every one of those changes.
So when I have to retag or untag a kid, because today's an example, we had a student unqualified for special ed services, so I have to go in and untag that student. You need to know what group I took him out of. I will go in and untag him, and then you will do the PNP through Pearson.
Yes, so that would be updated in two systems in two different ways. One is so that our reports are updated to reflect who's going where, and the other is so the system knows who's going where.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to give a brief comment because I know Jane Adams has to go, and this also applies to an issue Jane Adams has been dealing with. So with regards to this thing known as Code 15, Code 15 is a description that the state requires for any child who refuses to test. And I want to quickly clarify that. One, we've already sent out a letter to you to share with parents that are concerned, and that is the parents' kind of no opt-out allowed letter. So we need to still do that. But locally, I'm going to give you a written policy which states, and you'll see this today, which states that children must be administered the test. At that point, they can say, I'm not going to test. There will be a third document I'm giving, which you will keep in your testing locations, which just lets you write down the name of the child and the session name. Following testing, we will go into what's known as the corrective window and enter a Code 15 for every child that has refused to test. When a child says, I am not going to test, we cannot compel or coerce or prompt them that it's a good idea that they do it. And once they say they're not testing, we say, okay, we'll make a note of it. But we're not going to talk them into trying to start the test. They will have to do that process for every unit of assessment. So they will remain in the lab for Unit 1, and they'll read a book silently until all students are excused. And then they'll have to come back with their group for Unit 2 and Unit 3 for ELA, or just Unit 1 and Unit 2 for math. Each time saying, I refuse to test, and we'll make a note, and we'll go in the correction window for each of those test sessions and mark them as a Code 15. So you'll be provided once again with the letter, with the policy, and with the form to document it at your building in each test location. Are there any questions on Code 15?
There is a form in the manual. Are we completing that form for each student?
There is a form in the manual for Code 15.
I don't know if it says Code 15, but it's a form that indicates if a child refuses that has to be completed.
No, I think what we're going to do is, because what that's for is in the end collecting it and then entering it into the system. I'll read through it one more time, but I'm fairly certain it's just easier if we have one sheet with every child's name on it rather than a group of sheets per child, one per child. But what we need it for is so that we can go into the system and make that notation.
So this is a change from, like I had emailed a couple of, like last week I think. So this is a change, correct?
Change in what sense?
A change in like the whole opt-out. Like before we were saying that.
It's not a change. There is no opt-out letter. This Code 15 is not a new thing. This has been around for any assessment, any state assessment, the ACT, ISAT. It's always been there. And if a child refuses, this is how a school has always been supposed to handle it. It's marked as a Code 15, and we send it back to the state. It's become an issue now because parents are aware of this and are using this as their way to opt out. But it's not a new thing. It's always been there.
Okay, so it's not that the parent can refuse for their child, but the kid can refuse.
Right, and this came up in the last time, and the question was, well, once one child state this, won't the whole class state that? I am going to verify with the state, but I'm fairly certain we are going off of what the child states, and we are not calling every parent to verify that they don't want their child to test. Let me restate that. I believe the policy is we are not calling every parent to ask if they meant their child not to test. If the child says, I refuse, we are being neutral and writing it down, they have refused, Code 15.
Then we're taking them somewhere.
Jason, did you have a question?
No, not really. I think we got to be careful that how we deliver that message, because
I agree.
I'm just thinking of Trisha's ED program. Eight of the 10 kids are going to say they don't want to take the test right when they get it, but maybe not. Maybe they've changed. I can just see kids saying, I don't want to take this, and we're not going to pull. Like, aren't we going to use good strategies like we always have? Said, all right, do your best. I mean, we've got to be careful of that.
Again, I'll check with the state in terms of how far we can go.
Okay.
In that issue, but the verbiage that I was given the other day, it was very clear. The moment they say, I refuse to take the test, we then make a note of it and not push the issue. But I will call back and with example scenarios like you're talking about today.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the semantics of it, that's all. All right.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we want is for this to be the training thing to do, and every child by the end of the week knows, oh, I'm just going to refuse, and their entire district shuts down. We don't want that. So, right, I get your message, and I'm going to call back to the state and say, well, how are we handling this?
Yeah, there's a difference between your kid saying, I don't want to walk into Walmart, and sitting on the floor out on the sidewalk and refusing to go in. They're just very different. So, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but thank you. Great input. Do you guys have any closing statements? Jason, I know you need to run, so you guys can do what you need to do. Thank you for coming. Lucas, if you have more questions, we can continue.
I don't. One thing that did come up when our kids take the MAP testing, they, for whatever reason, the kids prefer for the lights to be off so that there's not glare.
My initial response to that was, no, lights need to be on. We need a testing environment that's conducive to testing and not sleeping. We don't want our kids, getting too comfortable and not paying attention. So generally speaking, I believe lights need to be on in the computer labs during testing. Are there any accommodations that would say lights should be on?
No, but I guess I'm just wondering if the instructional learning environment is optimal, and if the teacher typically has, let's say, the blinds open a little bit and the lights off, wouldn't we want to mirror the testing environment to be similar to the instructional environment? So
then the phrasing is, we need a well-lit environment. That doesn't mean lights are on. If shades are open and the room is bright, I'm fine with that. But I don't want a dark computer lab.
Right.
We have a situation in our office that also there are individuals that like a lower light environment while they're working on their computer screens, and we split the difference. So we have 2 light switches, one on, one off, to accommodate. Kind of seems.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to micromanage the issue. I
Right.
just feel within common sense, we don't want an environment where it's easy for a child where it's so dark they can slack off a little bit and then wouldn't be noticed and so forth. It should be a place where it's a learning environment, which is. Any other questions, Lukanzik?
I think that's it.
Can we ask one more question, please?
Oh, I thought you guys were gone. Yes, absolutely.
I have a question about our small group proctors finishing a test. So there's a lot of instructions on what the students do at the end of a unit, but reading through the script multiple times, I'm a little confused on what the proctor does on their end.
So I think I mentioned already, there's new training materials that Pearson has put out. They're in PDF form with pictures on them. There's actually up to 5 different ones. One of them is how to close testing, and it has pictures step by step, and it's scenario based. So one page is referenced basically what you would do for most children, and then the other 6 pages are like certain situations. That I will be putting in PDF form and sharing that out with all schools tomorrow, and that will be built into part of the trainings for the tech specialists next week. But you will have access to step-by-step instructions on how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Our next group, I think, needs to be starting soon. So I think we need to get going to our next group. Do you have any last pressing question, Lukanzik?
We're good, thank you.
All right, thank you guys for
Thank
your
you.
attendance today.
Have a good day.
We'll do some follow-up with you regarding those 2 points, both schools. Thanks.
Thank you.
I know that this is a crazy time for all of you as well, and I just want to commend all of your efforts. We see your hard work.
Thank you, Tricia. Thanks for your support in the buildings. We know it's the same for you too.
Good day.